Welcome in to the I-80 Boys podcast. I am one of the hosts on this show, Chris Vaca, yours truly. And this guy off to, well, it'd be your left, is...
It's your boy, old C. Hunt over here. Oh, Chris, it has been way too long. You know, it's so funny. It's like just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in.
I know, man. I know. Christian, I got to ask you a question before we get into anything.
Yeah.
How's it been? What's been a couple weeks without some college football? How are you feeling about that?
Well, first off, you sons of bitches up here in the Midwest lied to me about the weather. I didn't know anything about negative weather, and we started getting more than we got 15 inches of snow, and it was just god awful. But yeah, it's been very chaotic of an off season, right? We'll get into this a little more as the show goes on. Two coaches that made there's three coaches out of the four aren't with the same team anymore that they started in the playoff.
That's a good way to look at it.
You know, so 3 out of 4 coaches aren't even in the same team that made the playoff this year. That's so insane. What's up, everybody? Let us know what you're doing to get through the offseason this far. It's just started, and we've got a long way to go. At least right now, we've got the NFL. It isn't the dog days of July, right? We're not almost there. But let us know what you guys are thinking so far about this offseason. It's been really crazy. A lot of twists, a lot of turns, have kind of happened this offseason here, Chris.
Yeah. This transfer portal thing is freaking nuts, man. It's like every day it's like the lottery. Somebody's winning somebody, right? Like somebody's winning a X, Y, and Z player. Somebody's getting a new coach, or somebody's moving from, this team to that team. It's crazy. It's almost been like every day. You know what I mean? New news, breaking news. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy it. We've talked about some of the issues in college football. It's definitely one of them. It's almost too much movement, but yeah, it's been interesting for sure, Christian.
I pissed you off because I think I called you like 2 or 3 days in a row after DeBoer was hired and after Alabama started losing all these players.
Yeah.
And it just was, and the hires they made, I mean, it was fantastic. And I know Chris was getting really pissed, but for Nebraska fans, it would be like if Colorado, went on a run and ended up winning, 6 national titles over a 17-year period, and you won 2 in the midst of it, but
right,
then you had to compete with someone like Deion or Nick Saban. It just was, Georgia was always in the wake of that, and I've been waiting for this day for since 2009. So I kind of enjoyed it a little too much, I think. And the program over at Bama, the Gumps are starting to stabilize a little bit.
The Gumps, yeah, it's nuts. No, you weren't pissing me off, man. It was just nuts there. The SEC has been going crazy, dude. The DeBoer hire, Saban retiring, great players moving teams down there. It's going to be an interesting year of college football in 2024.
100% it is, and we are here for it. We're excited. Right now the streaming schedule is probably going to be, we're going to stream a little bit into February, kind of figure out what's going to happen. We're sure there's going to be a little bit more break. Some more news is probably going to be on the way. What does Michigan do? I have a very strong feeling they may promote within, or they may go get that bitch down south, as they're probably going to call Brian Kelly if he ends up leaving Louisiana for Michigan. We'll see what happens with that, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later on in the podcast. Chris, let's start it off here. Ohio State playing money ball right now. They landed Caleb Downs last week and Julian Sayin, a 5-star plus, which, look, by the way, the star ratings right now for these high school athletes is getting ridiculous. I thought the most you could be was a 5-star. Now I'm here, you could be a 5-star plus, then you can be a 5-star plus plus. I mean, how much money are these kids paying these guys to say that? That's what I want to know.
I want to add this. I have not talked to you about this. Mm-hmm. I got some really good friends that are Ohio State fans. Went to college there. I want you to throw a number at me, Christian. Your guess here, live. Mm-hmm. Ohio State offered Marvin Harrison Jr. a boatload of money to come back this year. If you guys don't know who Marvin Harrison is, he was the best receiver in the country last year. Won the Blitnikoff Award. He's the son of a Hall of Famer in the NFL. Christian, how much do you think they offered him to come back for 1 year of Ohio State this year?
I remember reading this article. I know I know we talked about this. You probably don't remember it. You've got Alzheimer's over there because of your age, but
I do.
We have talked about this, and I thought I read somewhere it was something. It was more than like most NFL rookies make or something. It was like what, like $10 million, $8 million a year or something crazy like that. Maybe 20.
15 million.
Jesus, yeah. I knew it was pretty damn high.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Let me ask you this. Let's say they would have talked him, back into coming in. Do they land any of these other guys, you think?
See, this is where we've talked about this, that there needs to be some sort of cap, because I think they still do, right? Because this money, these boosters, Christian, we know Ohio State football, it's national title or bust, right? They're one of the very few teams other than probably Bama and Georgia right now that can actually say that. They called this year a complete epic failure, and they lost one regular season game. Now, I know they lost the bowl game to Mizzou, but you know what I'm saying? I think they probably got all these guys. I do. I truly do. And by the way, we did not add in Quinshon Judkins on the screen there.
Yeah.
Really good running back from Ole Miss, transferred. That's huge for them. Travion Henderson is going to the NFL as well. So, yeah, this class is loaded.
Now, I want to talk about some key elements here, right? If you think about how this roster is constructed, it's not how the typical Ohio State roster is constructed. It kind of looks a little Michigan-esque to me, as in Ryan Day is playing copycat. You think about it. I mean, Michigan last year had two really good running backs in Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. You've got that Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins right now. Their offensive line was one of the best in the country. Now, I think Ohio State's going to get better this year. They get Seth McLaughlin, who was one of the better centers out there. The problem with McLaughlin, he couldn't really snap the ball at points last year, and that kind of, I think, took away. But I think the thing about McLaughlin is he's a hell of a blocker. So you slot this guy, maybe let him play guard for you, get someone that can actually snap the ball, and they've got a pretty serviceable offensive line. Will Howard, I think Will Howard might be kind of in that same cut of a J.J. McCarthy, where he's not going to necessarily be the best thrower of the football in college, but he's a great decision maker. He'll probably play within himself. He can make some plays with his feet. Am I right in that?
No, you are. It's a very good comparison, because you're right. It does look very similar to what we would say Michigan's offense has been, right? Michigan's had quarterbacks that can kind of run, move. They don't have to use their arm a ton because they can run the ball so well with the big offensive linemen and the two great backs. Here's my thing. Ohio State went from having no quarterback room this year and questions all over the place when Kyle McCord left to now people forget Aaron Nolan's there, right? I mean, he's been hyped up and talked about, I think was supposed to be the starter this upcoming season. I'm assuming it's going to be Will Howard now, the transfer from K-State, right, Christian?
That's what I would assume, you know what I mean? He's at least going to be given the first look at it, and then if they can, like, I really think if he struggles, they're not really tied to him. I mean, they have two, I think they have the number 2 and the number 3 quarterback in this class, pro-style quarterback, in Julian Sayin and then Aaron Nolan. The problem is you basically get these guys for a year. And there's not even a guarantee that you get them for a year because, somebody might I think Sayin will probably stay put. Aaron Nolan could say, nah, I'm out of here. Why would you bring in another quarterback? Right. I mean, they've actually, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, they've brought in 2 quarterbacks now.
Yeah, it's nuts to me. They went from 0 quarterback room a month ago to completely loaded quarterback room. And yeah, you can't tell me all these guys are going to stay there. That's just not the way college football is anymore in today's era, right? I mean, somebody's going to have to move. I'm assuming Aaron Nolan, if he doesn't get the job, is probably saying, well, they just got Sayin in here. I got to go find another place. I would kind of compare that to, hope you're all right over there, Christian, bless you. I would kind of compare this room to kind of what Texas had this year, right? Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy, and the Manning kid. So I hope you're all right over there, Christian.
I'm all good. It went down the wrong pipe.
Okay.
You pipe hitting bitches.
Jesus, took a ball grip over there, couldn't handle it. So, no, I do. It's very interesting what they are doing offensively, though, Christian, this year with the room, with the positions they got. I think Ibuka's coming back to it, wide receiver. That's huge for them. He'll be their go-to guy this year. Did Julian Fleming, by the way, did he go to Penn State?
Yeah, I believe he did. Okay. Penn State, they're having they're having another good off season, from what I can tell. But No, I've been seeing a lot of Ohio State fans, think that this quarterback room is going to be they're going to win multiple championships with this. And while I do think that they brought in a lot of great positions here, Chris, it goes back to how many times just in the 4-team playoff, and I know it was in the 4-team playoff, did a quarterback, that transferred or was a first-year starter or was a true freshman make it to the playoff, right? I mean, that I can think of maybe twice. I think it happened with Hurts, and then when he went to Trevor Lawrence when he was at Clemson as a true freshman, and I think it happened with Hurts, at Oklahoma because he was only there for a year. So I guess when I look at this, Julian Sayin is a true freshman. Aaron Nolan's a true freshman. So they might be really, really good, but they're going to probably take some time to get up to that level to succeed. Now, do I think that a transfer quarterback can get you inside the top 12? And position you to be that. Yeah, I think that's not going to be uncommon. I just think, to say, hey, we're going to have a quarterback come in 1 year, play lights out, put us in a position to be a top 12 team, and then with a one game elimination playoff, in a 12-team playoff format, that's a ton of pressure, and I just don't think that's going to happen. You need a couple years at the college level to really jive with the team and gel and kind of make things happen. So I think that's going to be really tough. It's a bold strategy for them, but Ohio State's going all in on it.
My other question, how much do you believe in Ryan Day?
Well, I'll be honest with you, right? I mean, I from a national standpoint, I don't really believe in him until he proves me wrong. Kind of like Harbaugh this year, right? I had no faith that Harbaugh could win in the playoffs until he did it. And so with Ryan Day, I mean, basically, if he doesn't win a national championship this year, there might be we've had this conversation. I think it's either national championship or they're gonna go after somebody else.
Right. No, that's my biggest thing with Ohio State. I mean, they're way up there as far as national title contenders this coming year, and they should be. It stops with me with Ryan Day. I think he could have a loaded roster. He's going to have one now. They're going to give him everything he wants and more, Christian, with this roster in the next year or two here. He's got to win one, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I mean, they got to beat Michigan for one. They haven't done that the past 3 seasons either. So, and they watched Michigan walk away with the national title this year. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a huge Ryan Day supporter, but I'm with you. Ohio State has had a crazy offseason. They got a lot of talent coming. I mean, they do. And I plan on them 100%. They better be competing for the Big Ten title this year.
Yeah. Mike says, do we think Raiola helps bring in some higher profile players, especially on the offense? Well, I would say so. I mean, it kind of happened pretty late, you know what I mean, when he actually signed as far as like December. You still have, the actual signing day in February, coming up, but a lot of guys have already committed, especially in that top 100. I think where you might see this is maybe in the spring because you have a kid like Raiola. It's going to make it a little more interesting. And I'll speak for both of us on this. As far as Nebraska's concerned, this year we might be taking a little bit different approach with Nebraska, right? I think what makes them interesting is the fact that they have Raiola, right? From a national standpoint, right? That's what's going to be a lot of people are going to be talking about. He's going to be a true freshman coming in. He's going to make mistakes, but I'm going to tell you right now, the kid's better than just about anybody else, you know what I mean, in that room. Like bar none.
No, he is. He's the reason why Nebraska's even gotten any love this offseason, right? I mean, that's the only reason why other channels, ESPN's talked about him. You guys know my thoughts about starting a true freshman, but I think he's our only option. It's going to be rough, though. I work downtown Lincoln. Right, people. I already heard 3 guys today. Easy 10 wins this year. Easy. Okay. These people are crazy. But I know Christian loves that when I throw that 10-win season out when we haven't won fucking 6 games in 8 years. But here we are. But no, I'm with you. Raiola, though, I truly think that, it's going to be tough. I do think I'm with you. I think it's more this offseason, spring, if he'll bring some players in. He did come over here super late. So probably the best recruit we've gotten in It's been a long time. I don't even know when. So this is going to be a huge year for Nebraska, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be tougher than people think. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Children of the Corn says Frost could be the quarterback coach. LMA, laugh my fucking ass off. JK, 6 wins, easy. Yeah, I think. Look, I think anything short of 6 wins this year, no matter, even if you start a true, Raiola as the quarterback, and not saying that is a bad thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I said, I just think that should be the bare minimum there. So
agreed. I want to add something real quick about a team, just a state that you work in, Christian, who has not hired an offensive coordinator. I got a couple really good friends that are Iowa fans. I got one that's just a diehard. He happens to be my best friend. I guess their AD told Ferentz to either hire an offensive coordinator this week or she's going to do it. So I don't know what the hell they're doing, Chris. We talked about this. We were poking fun at it a couple weeks ago. What are they doing? What are they waiting for? It's so late right now, and they've had literally 3 months to figure out who the hell they want.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think what's so crazy to me is, Bama's literally reconstructed a completely new staff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. In a matter of like a week. And Iowa's known that they were going to get rid of Brian Ferentz for what, almost 3 months now?
Yeah, it was eight or 9 games through the season. They named that they were shaking at him.
And it's like they don't. Everybody just I think they've offered the job to people. They've kind of done their, like the NFL. They've done the first round of interviews, and they've probably been like, all right, we'll see what shakes out. And they're probably waiting to see maybe if they can get somebody from the NFL, and they're just not landing anybody. And now that list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And yeah, I don't understand how you don't do it. But, also the weird part about Iowa, they also got, a top tackle in Caden Proctor, which there's some tampering allegations out there from the University of Alabama, because he said that Iowa reached out to him midway through the season and said, keep your head up, whatever, But I think it's pretty interesting if you're looking at, Iowa, they've got to do something. They got to figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. I mean, again, I don't know really, even if they hire an offensive coordinator, what they're going to do. To me, I would, if I'm that athletic director, which they just promoted to full-time, not interim anymore, I don't know. I might shake things up. I might be getting ready to shake some things up.
Are you saying get rid of Ferentz?
You're damn right I am. And listen, it sucks. He's been there forever. I know he's a consistent coach. I know the way Iowa fans think, and I know the way Nebraska fans think. It's 20 minutes to separate both states, not even, right? From Council Bluffs to Omaha. But it's night and day different, I think, how they, how these two fan bases are. I remember last year they had like 7-8 wins, Iowa did, or, they'd only lost like 1 game. Well, it was, right? And they were like, you'd have thought that they were
depressed over there, dude.
They were depressed. They were like, we're just terrible. We suck. I think at that same stretch, Nebraska was like, I don't know. They were like 0-3, 1 and like 2-5, and it was like something like that. It was something crazy, and it was like, well, maybe next week we can win. And you're like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
No, I had to bring up Iowa just for a second because I wanted to relay that message that they still have not hired an OC. Somebody mentioned it here. Scott Frost is still around, by the way he is. I just have to laugh. It's Iowa. I got to poke fun at them when I can. So,
right. All right. Well, let's dig into this a little bit here, Chris. Harbaugh, he's bolting for the NFL, literally. What does this mean, for Michigan?
I said this, and I think me and you would both agree on this, that Jim Harbaugh, I said this before the season started last year. This guy's been wanting to go to the NFL forever, dude. He's been putting in for jobs the last 2-3 years. Finally, it's going to happen, right? And let's be honest, he had a hell of a season this year. I'm not going to get into the violations and all that crap right now, but Michigan still was the best team in the country this year. They proved it. They went out there, they beat everybody they should have beat, and they did it. So I knew that this was coming. I think everybody knew. I think regardless whether he won the title this year, he was out. I truly do. And he was talking to NFL teams before the season. He was talking to them right after the national title game, essentially. As far as where Michigan goes, people forget that this team was very senior-laden. They had a ton of seniors on both sides of the ball, skill positions, everywhere. McCarthy, we knew he was going to go to the NFL more than likely anyway. He is. Both backs, Edwards, Corum, Roman Wilson, the receiver, all these guys were going. What the hell? Who's the guy that filled in for him this year, Christian? The black guy.
Sharon Moore.
Yes, he did do a really good job. I would assume that they're going to hand the reins over to him, right?
That's what I would assume. I mean, that's what the talks are. I mean, the only other person that I think that, maybe they might reach out to, there might be a couple of guys on a short list there. Like, again, Brian Kelly, that's a name I've seen thrown out there. But if I'm Brian Kelly, why would I leave LSU to go to Michigan?
I agree. You play already in the best conference in the country, in the SEC. I think Brian Kelly's getting paid a shit ton of money down there, right, Christian? I mean, he's only coming into his third year this year as a head coach down there. He hasn't been terrible down there. Let's be honest. I mean, he lost 3 games his first year, 3 games this year. But that is an interesting name. That is an interesting name thrown out there. But overall, I do want to add to Michigan. I think Michigan's going to have a down year. I think that should be expected. I still think that they're going to be good. I don't think Michigan's ever going to be complete trash and maybe go back. Hopefully, they don't go back to the Rich Rod era there. That was pretty tough for a while there for Michigan fans. But I think it's going to be tough though for Michigan going forward. I do. They just lose so many pieces, coach included.
Well, I think, like you said, Chris, I mean, this year for Michigan to win the national title, it took a lot of things just kind of colliding. They got a ton of pieces back. Harbaugh stayed with the team. They battled all the adversity, all the stuff that led into the season. They were able to overcome that. Then in the middle of the season, the news breaks about the Connor Stallions, filming, opponents and stealing their signs and signals. And it's like they just kept overcoming, and everything just went right for them. It fell into place. I mean, if it was any other Bama team, let's be honest, they probably don't beat them out of the first round of that playoffs. You go back, look at last year's Bama team with Jahmyr Gibbs and Bryce Young. They probably aren't beating them in the opening round of that playoff game. It's just little things like that. But for whatever reason, Michigan was able to figure out a way to win, and they did what they needed to do. And hats off to them. They got a national title. But the hard part of this is Harbaugh, he didn't have the best recruiting classes in the world. They were good, but they weren't, they weren't as good as like Michigan or Bama or Georgia or anybody like that. Or sorry, not Michigan. I meant, Bama and Georgia and, Ohio State. That's who I meant. Sorry. So like I said, Harbaugh, I think, has done a really good job at getting the right pieces together. He's gone. You've already seen some players prior to this start to sort of jump out. And I think the writing's on the wall, but I think they're going to do what Washington should have done, and they're going to promote from within.
Yeah, I would assume too. They almost have to, in my opinion. What Moore did this year, he did a good job. Michigan didn't fall off when he took over the reins. Now, I know people are going to say, hey, Harbaugh had, he was still in practices. Yeah, he was, and he had his finger on the team the entire time. But I think he did a good job. I think he deserves a job. He's a Michigan guy, and like I said, I just think it's going to be tough for Michigan going forward this year with all the pieces they're losing. Especially, you got to remember too, Christian, Big Ten isn't getting any easier. Oregon's walking in the door. Washington's walking in the door. UCLA, USC, teams with a lot of offense. So I think the Big Ten will be really interesting and fun to watch this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Kind of also staying in the Big Ten here, Will Rogers, he was the quarterback, at Mississippi State. He was the number 2 leading passer in, all-time SEC history. Transferred to Washington. About a month later, DeBoer is heading down to Bama. And about 24 hours after that news broke, Rogers hits the portal. I don't even think it took 24 hours. Then he realized that why would I go jump back in the portal? Because guess what? Washington didn't have a quarterback on their roster as of yesterday.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
You want to talk about winning a quarterback job by default? Why not?
Yeah. I want to talk about Washington for a second, Christian, if you will. I know we talked about Michigan here, but Jedd Fisch is the new head coach over there. Coming from Arizona. Arizona had an unbelievable year this year. Probably one of the hottest teams in the country at the end of the year, in my opinion. Just dismantled Oklahoma in the bowl game, beat the hell out of pretty much everybody at the end of the year on their schedule. I'm surprised that some of his players from Arizona didn't jump. FIFA, he didn't jump. The wide receiver down there didn't jump over to Washington. I guess my question is to you, Christian. Where do you see Washington fitting into the Big Ten this year, and how do you think they'll do?
Well, I think that's a great part of it. I mean, I would have said, here's the thing. I would have said with DeBoer as the coach, they would have probably been okay because he's got the history there. It's a new conference. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Washington still had some pieces there. I like Fish as a coach. I mean, right now, they've lost a ton already, just for the portal, but he's been able to pick up some other guys here that I think will make it pretty interesting. The fact that he's able to go out and get a running back, you got a couple of running backs that he's already familiar with from Arizona. You got a quarterback that he recruited there, and, another cornerback. That's pretty good. So they're reloading in some areas that they've lost, I think. I think Washington's going to be okay in the first year in the Big Ten. I do think they're going to take a massive step back. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team this year? No. But I think they can be like a top 40 team in the country, top 30 or 40 team in the country. Just have to see how it shakes out, right? That's my thoughts on it. I mean, again, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think it's going to be tough. The guys mentioned in the chat here too, a couple of you guys said that, they're going to take a step backwards. Absolutely. They're going to have to. They lose a lot of pieces too as well. I mean, hats off to Washington this year, by the way. They had an unbelievable season. But yeah, it's going to be tough. You lose those kind of pieces. You lose your quarterback. Odunze, all these guys are going to the draft. Johnson, all these dudes. So it's going to be tough regardless. I do think, though, Jedd Fisch was a great hire. I do. I don't think people are talking about that enough. I think he is a really good head coach. If you guys don't know what he did with Arizona, the year he got there 2 years previous to this year, they had only won one football game. And then the next year, I think he won 5 or 6, and then he ended up winning. What the hell did they win? They go 10-3 this year, something like that. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a really good recruiter. If you guys didn't watch Arizona play, I know they're tough to watch on the West Coast. It's usually late at night. But, man, they had some ballers out there, dude. And he can run an offense. I actually think he'll fit really well into Washington. They like to throw the ball a ton normally. That's what they've been doing. Great receiver play. I think they'll be all right there. But this year will be tough. Them and Michigan, it's kind of ironic they actually have to play each other in the regular season this year, too. Just after playing in a national title game. You don't see that every year, so.
Oh, no, you don't. Interestingly enough, I want to say this to, Bama fans. I've watched a lot of Bama fans talk about this. Austin Mack, he was a quarterback, from Washington that DeBoer, had coached, and he was supposed to be the quarterback of the future for him. That was the thought pattern. And everybody kept raving about how good this kid is, how good he is, right? Well, my question is, if he's so damn good, why did you bring in Will Rogers?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? That's my question. If he's supposed to be the most talented, and Bama fans are already stark raving mad about it, but if he's supposed to be the best quarterback, or the DeBoer thought he could get, why not just start him this year after Penix leaves, huh? You go to the Big Ten, you get a fresh slate, you get a new roster turnover. Why go out and get a guy like Will Rogers, huh? Because in this day and age in college football, there is no such thing as a quarterback of the future. You don't know who's going to be on your roster tomorrow, let alone, 8 months from now. You don't have that luxury anymore.
Yeah, no, you got a point. Like I said, man, it's a weird era of football that we're in. And the movement in college football is at a level now that we've never seen. And this whole Will Rogers thing is crazy in itself anyway. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Washington will be one of those teams this year I'm definitely going to keep my eye on and see what they do and even who they're playing, honestly. It's kind of a crazy deal there.
Absolutely, Chris. Alabama gets the number 9 recruit in the cycle, Ryan Williams, who's a wide receiver. He was committed to him. Saban retired. A couple hours after Saban retired, Williams decommitted. Now he's reaffirmed that commitment back up to Alabama. Again, like I said, the program for Alabama is starting to stabilize back again. So good job for them there.
Yeah, Bama. Man, we talked about Bama at length not too long ago, but man, it's going to be interesting with DeBoer, what he does down there, what type of offense he decides to run, the players that he has. Jalen Milroe, he's going to have to improve, I think, even though he did have a good second stretch of this season. It's going to be interesting what they do down there in DeBoer's offense and kind of what he wants to do. Christian, I talked to you about this. I want to stop here and keep it parked for a second with Jalen Milroe. We know what Milroe is, right? uber athletic, extend plays, incredible runner. I put him up there with the, Louisville version of Lamar Jackson, the way he runs. But can he throw the ball? He struggles a lot with the short to intermediate range passes. He does throw a good deep ball. Not saying he can't improve. He definitely improved the second half of the season, but we watched it. We just watched Michael Penix throw the ball 40 times a game, 400 yards damn near every game. I mean, do you see DeBoer having to try to cater around the skill set of Jalen Milroe, or do they, I was kind of surprised maybe he didn't jump in the portal or something happened there as well. Christian, I want to kind of hear your thoughts on this. We haven't talked about that. What do you think about this whole DeBoer coming over here? What type of style of offense? He's an offensive-minded coach, mind you, as well.
Here's what I think. Then I was thinking about this day when I was driving to work, Chris. Legitimately, this is what I think. I think that, if you think about what their system is with Michael Penix, it does not to the slightest fit Jalen Milroe.
Exactly.
Right? Milroe, and I think you were touching on it, he's more of a kind of run the ball on you, set some things up, kind of move the pocket left and right, throw on the run, improvise. He's a great improviser, I think is the way to say that. Right? He's really good at that. Whereas what Ryan Grubbs, what Kalen DeBoer want to do is they want you to hand the ball off. They want you to make quick reads. They want you to kind of, be able to read the coverages, sit back in the pocket, be comfortable, let a play develop, and throw it with pinpoint accuracy. But being honest, that's not Milroe. Right? Now, I'm not saying he can't adapt to the system, and I'm not saying they can't adapt a system to him. What I think Alabama's going to do this year is I think they're going to come into the spring and they're going to say, okay, we've got Austin Mack, we've got Jalen Milroe, we've got Lonergan, we got some of these other guys on this roster who we can sit back and try to see what they've got. And we're going to see, first and foremost, is there anybody that can adapt to this system and put us in the best position to win? Right? If Milroe doesn't do that, then he's probably not going to win the job. They'll probably end up running with one of those other guys that takes the job away from him, and he'll end up transferring if that's the case. If nobody else can take a strong enough step forward, and Milroe's the best one at running that offense, then maybe what they'll do after the spring is say, all right, we'll cater an offense now to you that suits you the best. That's what I hope they, if I'm an Alabama fan, that's what I would hope that they do with what they've got. They've got a lot of young guys. They've got a lot of guys on that roster that we saw play last year that didn't particularly light it up. And now they've got a guy this year that literally, Austin Mack, that you you bring in, that Will Rogers was going to probably be the heir apparent this year. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. If they try to put a square peg into a round hole and they force Jalen Milroe to be their quarterback this year, it's going to be a very ugly year for the Crimson Tide. They have to develop an offense around them. I think DeBoer and Grubbs are smart enough to do that. But again, we've seen guys make that mistake time and time again.
No, I agree with you. That was what I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it's just a weird fit. You know what I mean? You got two conflicting styles here, and we know what Milroe is. We know what DeBoer wants to do. I'm with you. I think they need to cater around Milroe and his strengths, right? And we know what they are. And you can win titles with Jalen Milroe. I definitely 100% believe that. It's just you got to put some pieces around him. Also get a running game established as well. Bama this year struggled to run the ball, in my opinion, compared to years past. So it'll be interesting to see what Bama does.
No, I 100% agree with you. By the way, we're going to take a moment of silence real quick. Uga 10 passed away yesterday, the all-time winningest mascot at the University of Georgia. It's very, very serious stuff over here.
That's it for my moment of silence for Georgia. I can't do it. You guys just want to do national titles. Get the hell out of here. You guys are favored to win it this year. I don't feel bad for your dog, you, or any Georgia fan right now.
It's bad when PETA starts getting involved with it, man.
Yeah. Like I said, speaking of Georgia, God, they are lighting it up in the recruiting portal. I'll say that. My God, you guys, and you're getting ETN. That's a huge one in the transfer portal. I think Georgia's going to be looking all right this year.
I think so too, Chris. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, last year they were trying to replace Stetson Bennett, right? And Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck had a pretty damn good year, all things considered.
Yeah. why do I feel like I'm the only guy in the internet bragging up Carson Beck? I thought he had a tremendous year, not just a good year. I thought he had a great year. I thought he had the best year out of any Georgia quarterback ever, in my opinion. You look at his stats, you look at the record. I'm telling you, dude, Carson Beck is my Heisman frontrunner next year. I'm telling you that right now. I do. I think he's that good.
Just keep on talking about it. I like it. Just keep on doing it.
I know this is the bad thing about this show is like it sucks that you're a Georgia fan. I can't make fun of you about anything. But I do like Georgia this year. They do. They've done a tremendous job so far. I thought the way it ended last year was unfortunate. I think if they played Alabama 10 times, I think Georgia probably wins 6 of them, honestly. But yeah, crazy year though. I'll quit talking about Georgia. We'll put them in the back pocket. We'll put them in the back pocket.
Children of the Corn says now they can't get screwed out of the playoffs. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God they're going to a 12 team. We've talked about that at length on this show, but thank God. This needed to happen. I wish it would have happened this year. It was just a year too late, in my opinion. This year would have been a crazy year. Usually we kind of know, Christian would agree, we kind of know most years who the top 2 or 3 teams in the country are. This year, I disagree, and I'm sure if Michigan fans hear this, they'll piss them off, but I actually thought there was a lot of teams in a 12-team playoff this year that probably could have won a national title. I think there was a handful of 6 or 7 or 8, Oregon being one of them. I thought Missouri was really, really good this year, was another team I would have loved to see play maybe a Michigan or play in Alabama. I wouldn't write the Tigers off in those games. Georgia, holy shit. I think everybody wanted to see Michigan play Georgia this year. Christian, I know you did. That'd be would have been a hell of a game. So 12-team playoff can't come soon enough.
No, I agree with you. And I know we've talked about it, ad nauseum on the show. I think that's still, it's never going to be enough. I mean, 24 to me is like the sweet spot. I just think it's, to me, the whole system, and we put a video out, so if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it.
It's good too,
but
by the way.
It's we break the whole thing down as far as that. I mean, Mike says, what do you guys thoughts on players being able to opt out the week of or even the day of the game? Well, I think a lot of the problem is what the way it's set up. We kind of almost got into an argument with somebody. We did get into an argument, and I deleted the comment because I kind of pissed me off. But we got into an argument with somebody, about we didn't understand, what the bowl games were about. It's for teams that go 6-6, and that's 7-5 to give them recognition. And what I think that a lot of people fail to realize is the era of college football that we're entering into, right? It's all money driven. Let's be honest. Nobody likes the portal unless it's your team stealing a shit ton of people, right? That's ultimately what it comes down to. The whole thing needs to be revamped. I really think that they shouldn't even open the portal. For me personally, I don't think that we should have bowl games anymore under that old format, right? I think they should do away with it. They should expand the playoffs. That should be where the bowl games go to. If you don't make it inside of a 24-team playoff, sorry about you. You can practice basically up until the actual playoff starts.
NIT tournament, man.
Yeah, you could do an NIT tournaments, whatever you want to do, but I still think, you should be allowed to practice and get those practices in, because that's what a lot of people care about. Like, I know that's what you said before, the 15 practices you get or whatever leading up to a bowl game. I mean, you could still get a couple weeks worth of practice. I think that wouldn't be anything wrong with that. But I mean, honestly, in this day and age, what does it matter? You know what I mean? If half the damn roster is going to be in the portal and they're going to be opting out of the game, like, we're just going to get more games like the Florida State-Georgia game this year.
Yeah, and that was the point that me and you both made and disagreed with this guy completely. It's all about those teams and the money they get from those bowl games. Nobody's watching those effing bowl games. The teams are getting a bunch of money from playing in them for whoever's sponsoring the bowl, but nobody's watching that shit. Let's be honest. Other than the fans of that team, nobody's watching it. Now, I do know, Christian, and we got into it about this, and we both agree, there would have been a ton of people watching Oregon play Michigan first round of the playoff or something like that, right? You would get an ungodly amount of people on every goddamn broadcast network, whatever, would have been watching even on a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered where the game was played. that's something that needs to change. And I'm with you 100%. Nobody gives two shits about the 6-6 bowl games other than the teams. And here I am, by the way, a Nebraska fan back here begging for a bowl game. I think it's good for the program. Yes, I think it's good for those kids in the 15 practices. But my God, as far as college football goes, something needs to change there.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. By the way, I'm going to drop a link in here. We finally gotten something figured out we've been trying to do for a while. Click this link, join the show, and we would love to talk with you. Your face will not be in here. It'll just be voice only, so you don't have to worry about your camera. You can leave it on. You can turn it off. It's whatever you want to do. But you can just talk with us, and it won't be video related. So you can do that, right? A lot of things are being put to bed there. But no, I agree with you. It benefits certain teams and it doesn't others, right? But at the end of the day, I really think, as far as, we're talking about bowl preps and stuff like that and when guys should have to know. I mean, the whole era of college football is changing. I mean, we're seeing rosters just, completely shift like almost overnight. So to me, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy.
Another question for you guys. What are your thoughts on streaming games? It will be the realm of sports here soon. I think, and if I know that, I think, is this what you were talking about the other day, Chris?
Yep.
Like as far as,
Peacock.
like having to buy Peacock and having to buy like 18 different,
It's coming.
or basically just buy a game if you want to watch it. Is that what you're talking about, Mike?
I almost guarantee he is, but yes, I bet he is. And if he is talking about that, what I'm thinking it is definitely going that way within the next 5 years. We'll see what Mike says here. Maybe he's on to something else here. I don't know about you, Christian, but that whole Peacock thing pisses me off.
I was just mad that, I didn't watch it. I think I was trying to watch an Iowa game and I didn't watch it because I didn't think I had Peacock. And then my wife, like the next day, was watching The Office on Peacock, and I was angry because I was like, "What the fuck? I could have watched that game."
Yeah. It's I know it's going to definitely come to that. It is. They've been talking about it now for quite a bit, so it wouldn't surprise me. We got Mike calling in.
Yo,
good evening. Yeah, good evening. You're on with the boys. And Mike, what's up, buddy?
Hey, nothing. Yes, that's what I was talking about with the streaming, was the fact that you're going to have to buy, 18 different subscriptions to watch, whatever game you want to watch and all that good stuff.
I think, there's a lot of things that are very, and I think this is what all we were alluding to, is there's a lot of things that were very money driven, in college football, and none of us are here for it. I don't think any of us are here for it, but like you said, I mean, kind of, and like Chris was saying, I mean, gone are the days where you could sit around and watch, college game day, you know what I mean, at 9 o'clock in the morning and enjoy it and know that you were getting ready to watch something truly nostalgic, where every game meant something. And, even if your team, I remember those years where I was, again, growing up and it would be very early in the season and South Carolina would smoke us early in the season and upset us. And it would be like, damn, our season's over. Well, time to watch, 2010, or 2008 Auburn with Cam Newton or some of those things, right? It's just, but it's just like every game used to mean something. Well, obviously now, throughout the season, you're still going to get some great games. But it's probably going to be more magical in the playoffs, and kind of like in March Madness every year, where we see a team get hot in the tournament, or in the later in the season, and that's what I'm here for, right? I think at the end of the day, the second that the NCAA expanded it to the playoffs, that's what it's about, right? And they're realizing, hey, they could probably make more money off this stuff. It ties all back into the streaming aspect of it. They're doing this to make more money. It screws us as fans completely. And I know it's something I talked with Chris about, so just like with, what is it, the NFL, was it NFL Golden Ticket? You know what I mean? Or whatever it is, where you pay like $400, $500 a year and you basically get a package and you can watch every game you want from preseason to the Super Bowl. Do I really want to spend $500 a year, to watch college football? Do I want to spend $200 a year to watch something that for how many decades now we could have watched just about any game you wanted for free. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna have to do it, right? Because I'm not gonna be the one to, you know what I mean? Like me and Chris boycotting this is not going to put these guys out of work.
No, you're right, and that's the thing that sucks. Though I hate that because I think we would all agree, and every subscriber and person on this channel loves college football. We're all here for one reason, right? And we love the game of college football in our collective teams and what have you. It does suck though. I hate this. I don't like that. Like for me, I'll talk about the NFL for a second. I'm a huge Miami Dolphins fan. They rarely play games until they've gotten better the last 2 years. They were never on TV like 2 times a year. It was Monday night and a Thursday night game. That's all they got. If I wanted to go watch them this year, for example, I would have had to pay $300 and I would have gotten all 16 games or 17 games, whatever they're playing nowadays. But man, that's a lot of money. I've never done it because I'm like, well, shit, they haven't been relevant for 20 years. So why the hell would I want to watch a bad football team play? I could just turn on the Huskers every weekend. So with that being said, though, I don't like it, Mike. I'm with you. I don't think anybody probably agrees with it. Unfortunately, though, our hands are tied. And I think like me and Christian, especially, we're going to watch football. I mean, you're not going to, I'm going to pay it if I end up having to do it. I know that.
And by the way, if I'm going to have to pay, you know what I mean, a couple $100 to watch every football game or whatever have you, every college game every year, I want every freaking game, whether it's out of market or in market. I don't give a shit. I want every game. I want every angle you could possibly have. Here's the thing. If you're going to make us pay for that, then cut out the damn commercials.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Christian, but they're not going to do that because that's how they get paid, through commercials, right? And on top of that, I bet it comes down to a conference thing. If you want to watch just Big Ten football, subscribe to Peacock, for example. If you just want to watch SEC, what do you guys play on? CBS normally? I think, isn't that quite a bit? You guys, am I wrong?
Well, I think it was CBS, but I think it ended this year. I think it's going to something else this year. I have to remind myself on that and study up on that. But yeah, you're not wrong. That's another thing we should have added to the damn list of how to fix college football is commercials.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I know. And I don't think that's ever going to fucking go away either. And it does piss me off. Maybe if we get big enough, Christian, we could be on commercials promoting the I-80 Boys podcast here. Guys, help us out.
Hopefully, by the way, we just got to a point now where we can monetize. We can do other things. You guys can donate. I don't know if you guys have noticed that yet. So we're at that point. We're finally there. We'll probably eventually look to add some moderators and maybe do some stuff over on the Patreon and start to do some of that stuff. So very, very good stuff there. Yeah. To buy a subscription, it better be crystal clear picture, 4K, etc. Damn right, man. I mean, you know what I mean? They need to do a lot of different stuff with that. Make it more, make it more acceptable. I think, and lessen it, right? For sure. They need to make it easier on us, the fans.
Yeah.
It's give and take. It's not, but they'll probably screw it up like they did the portal. They'll be like, you can transfer whenever and however you want, as many times, and pay kids whatever you want.
Yeah, I should get like a free subscription to beer too. Then on that, they supply me with a case of beer every weekend, so I can watch these football games that I'm paying hundreds of dollars to watch as well.
The old Natural Apple Busch Light over there.
Yeah, whatever works. I don't care at that point. I'll drink it. I mean, God damn, man. Like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm glad Mike brought that up. Is that's something that's been. I keep hearing more and more about it. Whether it's NFL, whether it's college football, they talk about it a lot and. It's almost confirmed it's definitely heading that way. That's why they're kind of testing this out, right? You guys even noticed some of the NFL games have been on Peacock this year. They're kind of seeing how many people are tuning in and, buying whatever the subscription cost or whatever. And it's like, yeah. And of course, people are still watching. So
it's, interesting times. That is for damn sure. By the way, Chris, were you able to hear Mike when he called?
Yes, sir.
You were able to hear? Okay, good. And just so, and obviously his face didn't pop up, everything like that. This is the first time we've tried it. I had to try it, with my wife the other day to make sure this all worked. And let me just tell you right now, it was a pain in the ass to get to this point. But I think we finally figured it out, so it'll help the channel. I think a lot of people are, I know it's tough to sometimes, turn the camera on and go do this. I mean, shit, I almost choked almost choked on my water to start the stream off here.
Yeah, hopefully, I was gonna say, get somebody down there and do CPR on you, or help you out in case something does happen, or you choke on that glizzy or whatever you're doing down there. You're talking about your throat hurt before the show started. I don't know what's going on over in the Hun household, but
hashtag throat goat. Anyways,
yeah.
Thought I saw Nick Saban come in here. Us Georgia boys, we choke a little bit, when he's in around us.
Yeah, what are you guys 1-5 against that guy?
Yeah, 1-5, man. And that's the thing. Like, we talk shit about it, but I'm not dumb. I mean, I think anybody would say, I don't care who your head coach is. If you had the opportunity to have your head coach of your team or have Nick Saban and have 17 years of Nick Saban, I mean, everybody would choose Nick Saban, right? I mean, not even a debate. When it's all said and done, I mean, we'll see what happens with Kirby. I think he'll do okay. I think he might win another couple of championships. Me and Chris, we maybe differ a little bit on some of our opinions about what's going to happen with college football, right? I mean, I think that, still the rich are going to get richer. It's going to benefit certain people. Chris has a great point too. I mean, one of the things that he said is, college football now, a lot of the stuff I think has been introduced to break up the monopoly of the Alabamas and,
right.
Some of these other teams and kind of make it more interesting, which if that happens, I'm cool with it, because it's like college basketball. If you think about it, college basketball has been this way, forever, where you've got a ton of really great teams, but that ain't the ones that end up winning the championship every year.
No, it's actually, it's funny. And like I said, I don't know what's all going to happen, but just the way I see it is going to become more like college basketball in the mid 90s. It was, if you weren't Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, throw in about another couple teams in there, you knew every year when picking that bracket who was going to win it. It's one of those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. Now you have no idea. It's throwing a dart at a dartboard most years in basketball, and I think that's kind of where it's going with football. We talked about NIL and stuff, but you see South Carolina's getting some big name players now. You see a lot of these other schools landing certain big name players, and I think that's kind of where it's going. But I will, to Christian's point, and I think me and him got in an argument about it, or a discussion was about Georgia and how many titles Kirby could possibly win. I think Kirby Smart right now with Saban stepping down is hands down the best coach in college football. I don't actually particularly think it's close. I think Georgia is an unbelievable program. Yeah. I just think it's hard to win national championships. Only one team can do it. One slip up, you're done for the year. That's just how it works, especially with the 12-team playoff. Now I think it's going to make it tougher for some of those games. Now you got to win 3-4 games, potentially a conference title game included sometimes on top of that, to try to make a championship game. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on a college football team, a college coach, and a program, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's changed too. Like, the game has changed immensely. I mean, back in the 90s, we go back to like Osborne, Bowden, Paterno, not Petrino. Jesus Christ, I hate that guy. But Paterno, Joe Paterno. Those guys, on the Mount Rushmore, Saban's obviously up there. I think surpassed maybe those guys too. But the thing of it is, those guys were all at their programs forever, right? And part of that was because there was no scholarship limit, right? You could just a lot of teams back then would just recruit guys purely for the fact, not that they wanted them, or not that even that they needed them, just so they wouldn't go to their rivals. You know what I mean? So they would load these rosters with as much talent as they could, and so they would keep these guys in their team because they couldn't transfer. They could, but they'd have to sit out a year, and then by then you're already a couple, recruiting cycles back, and so it was just really tough. Nowadays, the way everything works is you have to recruit these kids 24/7, to come to your program. You have to sell that vision. You have to pray to God that you were within the two major power conferences in college football, the SEC or the Big Ten. And then even if you do that, you still have to continue to recruit the guys on your roster, it seems like, almost day in and day out. Because if you sit a guy, if you try to discipline a guy, if you do anything like that to piss these kids off, if you don't play them enough early on, they're going to hit the portal and go find another place to play and go get a bag. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's bad all the way around. And I'll throw it down to Chris here. But it goes back to, do I think that anybody's going to have the same success that Saban did? I think Kirby, is probably got the best shot out of anybody. He's only 48 years old. He's got 2 championships to his name already. He's got a pretty good roster right now. If he takes care of business this year, he wins another one. That's 3. He's halfway to catching Saban as far as what he did at Bama. But I think that it goes back to it's like being a politician almost, being a head coach in today's game. I mean, you just see guys get worn down. The most successful guys get worn down. That's why I think, honestly, Nick Saban retired. A lot of people say he was giving away control, and I'm sure he didn't appreciate that, so the standards started slipping, for what they were used to. But I also think it's tough being 70-something years old and having to recruit 24/7 and make promises and do all this shit. I mean, it's just really, really tough.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I watched Saban's retirement, interview, and it was really good. I believe the guy. I don't think he had any reason to lie, and that was his thing. I mean, they asked him, and he said, "Dude, I'm 72 years old. I got grandchildren." He goes, "I've spent my whole life, 18 hours a day recruiting, coaching, and that cycle never stops, right? I mean, because just as soon as he wins a national title, he's on a plane trip to X, Y, and Z to recruit, some number 1 quarterback or some offensive lineman. I mean, that's got to get old." And he said that. He goes, "I can't stay up till 2, 3 in the morning and get up at 6 anymore." He goes, I do truly believe him. To answer the question, I don't know if anybody will have as much success. Now, I mean, if that goes on for eternity, in my lifetime, hell, I might only live another 30 years. I don't know. But I think Nick Saban and what he did at Bama and what he did at LSU, people forget about that. He made LSU to what it is today. I think people forget that. They were really nothing before he got there. They had some teams that were decent, okay, but never – once he won that first national title, then obviously he bolted to the Dolphins for a year and a half or whatever it was. Came back, and then Bama and brought them back up from they were in a slump for a lot of years too after Bear Bryant. They only won one title. I think it was in 92 in that 27-year span after dominating the 70s and such. I think what he did, and he did it in such a way that in that time frame was perfect for what Saban did. I think now people are going to say, well, he's losing control. Players are transferring. I agree. Some of that he probably did. He doesn't get to keep a kid like you could. Like you brought up Tom Osborne. You brought up Bobby Bowden. Those guys coached for like 40 years at their program, if not more, because the league was more of a coaches league. It is now a player-driven league. Like the NFL, it's all about player movement. It's kids getting paid. Like you said, you got to constantly coddle these kids 24/7. It's a different age of college football. But if anybody's going to do it, I would say it's Kirby Smart. I do. And Saban had 7 national titles in his career in college football, 6 at Alabama, the 1 at LSU. Kirby's got 2 now. He's going to have some work to do. Can he do it? I think Kirby's the only guy right now currently that can probably be in that realm. I truly do believe that. Like you said, Christian, though, the toll that it's got to take on you. I mean, Saban, how much you took out of him for all those years. It's got to be hard. You guys were going for 3 this year, man, in a row, something that's in my modern time has never been done. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's 2 things. Before I forget, by the way, I read this stat a couple months ago, and it lives rent-free in my head a lot. Did you know Dabo Swinney has more bowl game wins at Clemson as a head coach than South Carolina does as a program in their entire history?
I did not know that, but that would probably make sense.
I don't know. That's wild. I don't know why I just thought about that. But yeah, let that marinate for a little bit. The second thing I was going to say, when we do this show, Chris gets up at like 4:30 in the morning and goes and works out. And I get up not that early, to be honest with you, but I get up at like, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I go to work all day, and it all evens out, right? Then we come home and, we sit down and we're talking about the podcast, and we get on, we do the podcast and where we want this to go. Like tonight, we've been getting after it all freaking day. And just imagine like doing this every single day in and day out. For 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Well, first of all, we would probably have a really good product, I think, and we'd probably be able to do this full time. But secondarily, it would get old as shit after a while. Yeah. No, it would. And that's, I couldn't imagine, doing what
what Saban did, some of these coaches, even Tom Osborne. I actually see him every once in a while downtown in my building where I work at. He comes down there and gives speeches. I actually ran into him a couple months ago and shook his hand. It was kind of cool.
Nice.
And he's getting old too, by the way. He, not to hate on Tom Osborne, he looks pretty rough, man. But still super smart guy. But yeah, I think, it takes a lot out of you, Christian. I mean, I remember when Osborne retired, a lot of people were kind of shocked, like, man, he's not really that old, but he had a life to live. He's got kids, and I think Saban was in that boat too. And who's to say that, let's say Kirby does win 2 or 3 more. He's in his 50s. He might say, you know what? We've seen guys retire early in their lifetime too. You never know. But let's say somebody else, like Dan Lanning's a guy, you know how much I love him. I talk about him all the time. Yeah. He's young, super young. Let's say he gets a title this year at Oregon. A couple years later, he gets another one. He might be in that same position as maybe Kirby or somebody like that. And we could be talking about him in the same light as Kirby, or we could be talking about maybe a DeBoer in that way, or Steve Sarkisian. I mean, there's a lot of good coaches out there in college football right now. I will say that the game's in good hands right now as far as coaches go. There's a lot of them. As much as I don't like Brian Kelly, I do think he's a good coach. Harbaugh's obviously leaving for the NFL, but I'm not going to say Ryan Day's a good coach. You can't pay me to say that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like, you commit to a school, like you committed to Bama because you knew you were going to have a great chance to make it to the league, right? Because of Nick Saban and because of what they've done with that program. You commit to a school like Georgia to play defense, you know what I mean? Because you know you're going to have a great chance to make it to the league if you're halfway decent on the defensive side of the football, or an offensive lineman, or a running back. Now, wide receiver and quarterback, that ain't really our bread and butter, you know what I mean? I mean, Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels, I love them to death, but they aren't exactly lighting everything up. We got Matthew Stafford, who's, limping along out there and still holding strong, but, that's about it. You go back and you look at Ohio State, you look at, some of these other teams, and like, there's always a specialty, it seems like, right? That these teams have, like Ohio State wide receivers, right? Even Ohio State defensive backs have been really good. LSU receivers, LSU defensive backs. Yeah, I mean, you think about that. But what Bama was able to do, it seemed like almost at every position, was just monopolize it because of Saban. Because you knew, hey, he did I really think when we all look back at it, and I thought about this the other day, Saban, what made him the greatest coach of all time at the college level was the fact that he could recruit with the best of them. It was the fact that he could coach a roster, that didn't even have that much talent, with the best of them. And then lastly, and this is a major part of it, he could put a staff together with the best of them. And see, this is where the difference, and we're going to talk more about this later as this offseason starts kind of chugging along. Alabama went out and hired Buffalo's, head coach, and South Alabama's head coach, University of Buffalo, their head coaches to run their defense, basically. And they might be good, right? But not to the standard that you're used to getting. Not to the, we saw that happen with Bama with Pete Golding. He was hired out of Delta State, and Bama fans hated him because the defense, I think, was starting to kind of slip a little bit. Now, they still had Saban to kind of oversee things, but you don't have Nick Saban overseeing that and running that, to that degree that he's going to necessarily do it. And I think that's being overstated. But, Bama had all those assistants. They had Sarkisian, they had Lane Kiffin, they had Jeremy Pruitt, they had, they had Kirby Smart, they had Dan Lanning as an assistant at one point. They had all these guys, and I do think Ryan Grubbs will get a shake as a head coach at some point. I think he's too good of an offensive coordinator not to. But now we're talking about just that level of, run that Saban was able to have. I think it was, that's very tough to do, right? I mean, because like Bill O'Brien, right? He went to Ohio State, but how often do we see that now?
Yeah, you don't. And I'll add to Saban, you hit the nail on the head with him. And my big thing with Saban too was that when he took, you guys remember those first couple teams he had with Bama, what, in 07, 08, 09, in that range, their quarterback was mediocre. Greg McElroy, I think he had like Blake Sims, a couple guys that really nobody knows of.
John Parker Wilson.
Won titles with a bunch of those guys. Now, those teams were all just incredible defensive players, great offensive line, and great running backs. I could go through the list of those guys. But I remember when he made the turn and got Jalen Hurts, a little bit different style quarterback, Tua, Mac Jones, when Henry Ruggs at wide receiver, Judy, all these guys. Jalen Waddle, I can name them all. The way he innovated from a heavy run, all defensive team completely in about 2 years turned over to throwing the ball with Bryce Young 1,000 times. That's what I knew. I was like, man, this guy is smart. He wasn't stuck in his ego, right? Kind of something Dabo Swinney has a problem with. On the other end, he won't adapt. He doesn't want to change. We could talk about him at length on this show, but that's something that I love what Saban did. I think that's what made him great. He was always willing to change and, improvise and find new ways. And, hey, you know what? I like running the ball and playing great defense. You know what? To catch up with some of these teams like Joe Burrow and LSU, I'm going to have to be able to throw the ball and make it work. So, and he did that with great success.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just going to be interesting, man. I mean, like I said, this offseason, it's already upon us. It feels like the season just ended like last week. I guess it kind of did, didn't it?
Well, it kind of did, but I mean, it's just like, we talk about this transfer portal, the recruiting still going on, but this whole transfer portal and the uprising it's been the last couple of years is almost like I told you before the show started. It's kind of like a season in itself right now, right? Teams are jostling for certain players, so like everybody's paying attention to it. And by the way, I will say this: Christian knows way more about recruiting and transfer portal than I do. He does a good job. He's calling me every day or texting me every day about X, Y, and Z. Not that I don't pay attention to it and I don't know some of the players, but Christian's got way more knowledge than I do when it comes to that. I have to admit, he knows his shit when it comes to recruiting and transfer portal and who's where and who's going here and there.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think I definitely enjoy it. I think it's somewhat fun, right? Be able to keep up with the recruiting. Now, I'll be honest, it gets very, very chaotic. But yeah, we'll see here. Let's see here. We're talking about basketball. Who's our favorite to win the tournament right now? I don't even know, man. I haven't paid attention to it well enough to be able to tell you.
I follow enough of that my opinion, I would probably say, a lot of people are going to say Purdue. They brought a lot of people back real quick. But I think they're beatable with their big guy. If you get a team that wants to run up and down on Edey, you could beat them. That showed last year. They got beat real early. We're a 1 seed, I believe. North Carolina, my Tar Heels look good. UConn's pretty solid. This year, basketball, we talked about this, and I'll leave it there, was that basketball now is, I swear you could throw a dart at a dartboard. It's whoever gets the hottest at the end of the year, and the NCAA tournament is a grind. You got to win 8 games. There's about 15 teams that could do it this year. I'd say Tennessee, Kansas, Kentucky. Some of your blue blood teams are definitely good. Duke is definitely a good team as well. So that one's a tough one. Right now, if I had to bet right now, I'd probably say UConn. I think they're actually number 1 in the country right now. They've been playing really good basketball.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't keep up with, man. I need to do probably a little bit better job.
Right. I got you carried over here, buddy. I'll carry you.
You got me carried.
You're a big guy. My back hurts, but I'll keep carrying you.
By God, I was going to say, we're going to start a segment out here, who's, I was going to say, is Chris old? Am I fat? What are we doing here?
Both. I am old.
Both.
I am old, man. I feel it every day, dude.
Well, I love Lamp, man. I mean, that's all I could tell you.
Some bitch is still crooked. You ever gonna fix that thing?
Hell no, man. I'm gonna leave it. Listen, we got some big things getting ready to happen on the show. We've got let's just say we've got a trophy on the way.
Yes, we do. I'm pretty stoked about that. Pretty stoked about it. By the way, I do want to say thank you guys for the support this year. I feel like I say that at the end of every show, but thank you guys, by the way, for coming out tonight. I know we hopped on a little later tonight, trying a few things there too, but we got some big things in store though. So this year's going to be fun. Christian and I think we haven't quite been doing this a year yet, have we, Christian? We're getting close when we first went live. So almost a year ago. So we're working through some stuff, but man, it's been a lot of fun though.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, that's been the great part about this year. Me and Chris talked about it. I think this first year for us was kind of a very experimental year. We're trying a lot of different things, what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's the big thing too. I know for us, it was kind of funny. We touched on it a little bit at the start of the show, but it really was true. Me and Chris had a conversation. We were getting ready to kind of gear down for the off season. We probably actually weren't going to do anything live until about, March is when we were going to circle back, just because of how much roster management there is and just how chaotic this time is. And just there's so many moving pieces with it that it just doesn't make sense until probably right about the start of spring, the end of spring there, that whole period. And, we did a show, I think, recapping the national championship there. And funny enough, we got off there, we signed off, we said, we'll see you back in March. Me and Chris got off and we talked a little bit and we said, all right, man, well, sounds weird, but we'll see you in March. We'll probably talk a little bit before then. And then, not even 24 hours later, Chris calls me and says, dude, Nick Saban's retiring. And it was so fresh that it hadn't even hit ESPN yet. It was like in the back sources of Twitter. Still said sources. And I'm like, oh shit, I had to hit refresh a couple times. And then, we were talking, we're like, we need to do something about this. So then we got on, we tried some different things. And then we said, you know what, the off season is just getting started, now that this guy retired. So we gotta kind of readjust some things there.
Yeah, that was it's been nuts. This season's been crazy. Like I said, with the Saban retiring, DeBoer getting hired a week later. I mean, it's been a cool off season. And that's why we're still on air here and still doing it.
Where it says you got me a trophy. You don't want this trophy. Well, I mean, you guys might get it. I mean, it's actually the I-80 Boys inaugural off-season championship trophy. So, for all those teams that end up winning that win the off season, I think that's probably what we'll do, is give them that trophy.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about the Huskers, but they're just been, like I said, man, it's going to be interesting. It's still not over yet, man. There's still a lot of pieces moving yet. College football. We'll be talking about this for the next 4 or 5 months. I can guarantee it.
It's like Mike's talking about. I'm assuming this is Sam Koch. Is that how you say his last name? Koch. Is that Cook?
Cook.
Was that really how you say his last name? Is Cook?
Yep. Yeah, he was awesome. He punted there for Jesus Christ, like 20 years. He was awesome. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. Actually, I think he had crazy numbers punting there. Nebraska punter. Huh. Yeah, he was really, really good.
I'll be a son of a buck.
What you got there? You got some DoorDash showing up or what?
I had some DoorDash showing up. What are you talking about, dude? First of all, I'm getting shredded this year. This is the year of old C Hunt getting shredded. Oh, geez.
Oh, boy. They let anybody in this show, don't they? Holy shit.
Oh, there he is. Billy Napier's son himself.
Hey, Swag, I got to ask you a question, man. I mean, you are one relentless MFer, but I got to ask you a question. Last time you left, you were saying Napier's winning Coach of the Year. I swear just a month and a half ago after that terrible loss to Arkansas, you said fire the guy that whole week. I mean, what's going on over there? Or is that the Florida? I want to know the pulse over the Florida fan base.
We totally forgot to talk about this too. What about Florida? Like, what's happening with them in that whole NCAA investigation?
Yeah,
with the whole,
that's true.
Was it Rashada? Is that his name? Yeah, Rashada?
Yeah. Yeah. What's going on over there, Swag? You're our reporter over there in Florida. You got to give us some news here. And don't give me any of this bullshit. Florida's winning a national title this year, or any of that crap.
Well, it's a 12-team playoff. So anything can happen.
Stop it. They're not winning. Billy Napier's getting fired this year. They ain't winning 5 games. I said this. You guys didn't believe me last year, and they did it again. You see Florida's schedule. We've talked about it at length on this show.
The schedule, talking about it at length. Yeah, no, it's going to be a tough schedule. But if there was a year where you could, Georgia's also in a recruiting violation too. Yeah, but Georgia's is much smaller though, right? I mean, like, the mascot dying was bigger news than the actual recruiting violation.
Eric Gilbert back in.
Oh Lord, I think he came back to the state of Georgia and got arrested again for breaking into another. And I'm not making this up. You can go look at it. After he broke, he got arrested. A couple of, I think it was like a month or something like that later. After he broke into another, it was another like vape shop liquor store.
What's wrong with this degenerate? What the hell is his problem, man? Jesus.
He's supposed to get other kinds of receptions, dude. He's supposed to save that for the field. You know what I mean? By the way, if you want to call in, call in. We've got it figured out now to where it won't show your face. It'll just be your voice, okay? So if you want to do that, Swag, call in. We'd love to hear from you. We talk about these recruiting violations together.
Yeah, Florida and Georgia, about the only thing they got in common.
There's a line somewhere down there, you know.
Yeah, they do say that. They do say that. That's one thing I love about Swag, man. He just keeps coming back from where I could still keep talking shit about Florida. And yes, I'm a Husker fan. You can talk all the shit you want about him. I agree.
The report that is being heard is the investigation is nothing big at all, according to a report. Okay, so basically our recruiting violations are probably about the same thing. It's really a whole lot to do with nothing.
I think you could file one of those on about every team. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
yeah.
I don't ever get too excited when I see those. I'm just like, I mean, you can't buy a kid a cheeseburger. You know what I mean? You bought it at the wrong time. It's just all this crap. It's like, get out of here.
I have a question, and I saw this yesterday. I think it was on Twitter, and I think it's worth noting. We talk about, there's a scholarship limit of 85. You're limited to 85 scholarships. But you can have as many walk-ons as you want, right?
I don't quote me on that. I think so, but I don't know how that works. Like I said,
I mean, I know there's so many you can travel with. I know that, right? But theoretically, you can have a bunch of walk-ons. So my question is, what's stopping? And again, I saw this. Now that kids can get paid, what's stopping the NIL from coming in and just paying a kid's tuition?
I didn't. Just 1 second to answer your question. You can have 33 walk-ons. I don't know.
So you can have
118 kids.
It's kind of a odd number there. Why not make it 120? But anyways,
hey, I don't write the rules, bro.
Right, I'm just saying.
Googled that though, for real.
So you have 33. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like seriously, like what's stopping? What is the point of having a scholarship if you can have an NIL collective that raises like another, I don't know, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it needs to be, and just pays for those kids' tuition.
I agree. That's an interesting question. It's a good one. Yes. Also, to add to your point, I don't know why the number is 33, but that's literally what it says. I'm assuming that's correct, but I'll take 33 Stetson Bennett's though.
33 Stetson Bennett's. Well, which ones? The ones that went to the Rams and they're quietly not in the NFL right now, or the ones that were at Georgia?
I'll take the one at Georgia, man. He was an awesome college quarterback. He was awesome, dude.
Oh man, was pretty good there. Wasn't he? He did some good stuff. The 2-time back-to-back, sound like Dr. Disrespect, national champion there.
Yeah, the 2-time as we call him. No, it is amazing. He's the only walk-on quarterback to ever win a national title, and he did it twice. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool story.
He's like you, man. You got lucky twice.
Yeah, that's about right. Swag went a little quiet here. A little disappointed.
Yeah, it was about Rashada. I think in that investigation, from what I could tell, they was something crazy. It was like $13 million, and he showed up on campus, and the first payment he was supposed to get bounced. Like it did not clear, and he never got the payment. It was something like they never got the payment. So then he said,
"You're right.
I'm out."
You're right. That is right. That is that story with that kid.
And then he transferred to like Arizona State, which was, but I think he transferred to Arizona State because of how late in the cycle it was. So it, there was really a lot, there wasn't really very many good options left for him to go at that point. But I do agree. I think NIL is a mess. He's talking about who's taking the Michigan job. I know right now we said Sharon Moore. I think looking at what's up here, was focusing. They're focusing on more. I think this is all smoke and mirrors. I think Michigan has known this is going to happen for a while. Obviously, if we knew this was more than likely going to happen, damn well they knew it was going to happen. So they've been putting probably a lot of contingencies in place. Another name I keep seeing, is Brian Kelly. Again, I'm not saying that. Chris isn't saying that.
No.
Oh my God, I already know where he's going with it. Go ahead, put it in there. Put it in there.
Oh God.
DM himself.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't see. Brian Kelly surprised the hell out of me. Like, I don't see why he'd leave LSU. I really don't. Fucking Dan Mullen. That guy is a stooge.
Hey, I wanna throw another name out there. It's not gonna happen, but wouldn't it be fun if Urban Meyer took that job?
It's funny. Kyler, one of the kids here, said that today. He's like, wouldn't it be cool for Urban Meyer to go to Michigan? I'm like, God damn, man, they wouldn't allow him up there. He coached at Ohio State, man. You know that would never work. Those people hate Michigan and vice versa.
No, but it would just be. I don't know. It feels like something he would do.
I got a question for you, in chat as well. Does Urban Meyer come back and coach again someday?
Ooh.
Would you take the over at 0.5? Yes or no? Or would you take yes or no? Which one?
I would. How old's Urban Meyer? He's not very old, is he?
No, he's in his 50s for sure. Age. He is 59. Jesus, almost 60. Got
he's got a pretty
problems though, and stuff like that. You know.
Well, they flare up, I think, when things start happening. But I don't know, man. He's got a really sweet gig at Fox. I think it would have to be the right job. You know what I mean? I literally think it would have to be the right job.
Do you, if somebody was holding a gun to your head and said, "Hey, Christian, do you think he comes back?" I think he does at some point.
I think he does. I mean, I don't know what it is exactly, right? I think it's like with anything, right? Like, do I think Nick Saban's completely done with the game of football? No, I do not. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
I think
I'm saying head coach though, like Urban Meyer go coach a team, like whether it's A&M or somebody like that down the road. Florida, go back to Florida after they fire Billy Napier.
It's a possibility. I mean, what about? Okay, let me throw this out there. What about Utah?
You think he'd go back there?
Maybe. You know what I mean? If what's his name? God, why am I drawing a blank?
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Whittingham. What if Kyle Whittingham, let's say, gets a job opportunity? You know what I mean? Like the same way DeBoer got, right? And Whittingham says, you know what? I've been here forever. I'm going to take that opportunity. I'm going to go somewhere else. The Utah job opens back up. Maybe Meyer says, hey, I wouldn't mind going to the Big 12. You know what I mean? And going back to where it all began.
I would find it hard to believe if you go back to Utah. I could see him, like, if he did go back to like an Ohio State, if they fire Ryan Day after this year and they don't get it done with this roster, I could see him going back there. I could see him going back to maybe Florida. I watched that documentary, that Florida team, but I definitely think he'll coach somewhere. We're still going to hear. I mean, his name is always going to get thrown around, but it was just a question I had, just because it's interesting that we did not hear his name for the Alabama job or some of these other high-profile jobs. Is kind of interesting. It's just like a name. It's like, God, like Urban Meyer's always floating around, So yes, he's still getting a fat check from the NFL, but I think we'll see him again, man. 59 isn't that old yet for coaches. We got guys out there. Nick Saban was 72, man. So.
Mike says, does he go back to Ohio State if Ryan Day leaves?
I could see that. Ohio State fans loved him there. I know he left the program in shambles like he does everywhere else, but they'll take a couple national titles with some violations.
Take a couple. You're not wrong. You were not wrong.
I would too at Nebraska, to be honest with you. Hell, I'd take a 6-win season.
I think if Billy Napier gets fired, Florida goes after Ryan Day.
Ooh.
Oh, that could be. But why would he leave Ohio State though if they don't fire him? You know what I mean? That's my only thing. Why would he leave Ohio State to go to Florida? Well, he's going to have just as much pressure. He's going to have just as much pressure at Florida. I mean, maybe it won't be at that same level.
It's as much as Ohio State. I think Ohio State's got to be probably the top 3 hardest place to coach in America, in my opinion. Those people are relentless, man. I mean, that's how Kyle McCord got out of there. He's like, Jesus, I can't do this. I lose one game to Michigan. Nobody thinks I'm any good. Now I'm playing at Syracuse. But I'm with you. Yeah, that's an interesting take, though, Swag. That's an interesting one. Yeah, Florida ain't going after Scott Frost. Scott Frost did, though, talk to Arizona and their coaching vacancy. I do know that, which was kind of interesting. I could see Scott Frost. Scott Frost going to find himself a job here somewhere. He's speaking of young. I don't even know how old he is. If he's in his 40s yet.
Frost, I feel
49.
like he's got 49. Yeah. I mean, he's getting up there. You know what I mean? He's going to have to figure. I think maybe it was Mike, right? And I think he was saying something about like maybe San Jose State, but I don't see the way that whole thing went with Frost at Nebraska. I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job to start off with. I think he's going to have to probably take an offensive coordinator role.
Yeah, I still think we will hear about him at some point getting a head coaching job somewhere eventually down the line, right? I think if he gets an OC job, it'll be at like an Iowa or a Power 5 school. And then you know how that works. That's how he started his career at Oregon. You know, he was under Chip Kelly and got promoted, and then ended up being the OC, and then, end up going to UFC. But I think that's kind of how he'll have to do it again. I agree with you. I definitely know he'll be on the sidelines somewhere. But I do know Arizona did talk to him about the vacancy they had with Jed Fish there when he left. So, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Scott Frost also lives in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, currently.
Oh, really?
Yep. I'm almost 100% positive.
He doesn't live in Nebraska?
No, when he moved his shit out. I actually know people that lived right next to him, damn near. Yeah.
I know.
I think
he's not allowed to really. He's not allowed to really like Frost can't just like come chill and go grocery shopping in the state of Nebraska. Probably.
No. Unless he's pushing the shopping cart. That's about it, bro.
Yeah, he kind of. I mean, can he come back to the state? Like, does he want to come back to the state? I think that's
He's got family. He's from Wood River. I'm sure he's around, but what happened with all the rumors. I'm not going to get into.
Oh
them,
yeah,
some of that stuff was true though, 100%. So yeah, he's pretty. It's a word you don't like to bring up in Nebraska. A lot of people have some really mixed feelings about that, and as they should. I'm one of those people, man. I my thoughts. I thought that he was going to be our guy for the future. So is Mark Mangino even around him when that guy didn't die? That's that big guy, right?
Oh, yeah, the Kansas?
He used to coach under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma and that whole tree. Where the hell's he been? Oh, he got in trouble for like something with a player, like when he was at Kansas, like too hard on him. Something like that.
He hit the old Mike Leach, rest in peace, Stone Cold Stunner.
Similar to something like that. 2023. Well, I didn't say anything about him coaching, but yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, Iowa, go get an OC. My God, hire me or Christian. Christian's closer. I think anybody could do better than the 15.4 points a game they averaged on offense this year.
What about Texas's coach's contract? Well, I think they're all now. I could be wrong, but I think like a bunch of these guys with the Alabama, job, they're all represented by Jimmy Sexton, and this was all power plays for them, right? To get just massive. What's crazy to me, and we haven't talked about this yet. Dabor is only making $4 million a year to go be the Alabama coach. They were literally offering him $9 million. I heard, at Washington.
No way.
Why would you? Why? Yeah,
Bama was paying Saban like 15.
Well, that's Nick Saban. I mean, this guy hasn't won a national title at this level. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let's see what that is real quick. Let's see if I can't find that. What do you guys think about that, if true?
$2 million. You are correct. That's what it says here.
Yeah, and I damn well know they doubled that to stay at Washington. So this guy might be a lot dumber than we thought he was. Yeah, right. That's exactly. I can't put that on the screen, Corn, but yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising. I thought they were going to pay him at least 8, I guess. I didn't think, obviously, they're not going to pay him what they were paying Saban. Bama's got a ton of money. That's surprising. Like, wow, you really wanted that job then, apparently. And it wasn't because of the money.
Right. which I don't understand. You know, there's a ton of West Coast teams out there. If you keep lighting it up, you know what I mean? You would think with Harbaugh going to the NFL that, you know, you would think the Big Ten maybe would maybe be the easier route, right? Especially the fact that he's owned Dan Lanning over the last couple of years.
Right. That's surprising. That does surprise me. I did not know that. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what, like I said, we've talked about him at length about this Bama job and where Bama's going to be going this year. It'll be interesting to see what they do down there this year, especially with all the movement. Man, yeah, that's crazy. $4 million. I wouldn't have guessed that. If you put that, if I had to bet on that, I would have lost my ass.
If Billy Napier does get fired, I got 3 coaches I would go after. Number 1, Lane Kiffin. Number 2, Ryan Day. Number 3, Nick Saban.
I would flip them in that order. Old Lane train. I mean, he's almost coached every team down there. Might as well go to Florida then.
That would be a very Lane Kiffin-esque move, I think, to go to Florida. I could see that. Ryan Day, you know, yeah, I could see where a lot of arguments are being made for that. They would definitely want to, you know, Nick Saban going to Florida. I don't know if that's, you know, would ever happen. That would be a very dreamless thing. I just think Saban's, I don't know how to describe it, man. Like, I could see like Saban going to West Virginia. You know what I mean?
Saban's done. He's going to have his finger in Alabama in a, what do they call that kind of role in the NFL? Like a consultant.
Yeah.
He ain't coming back coaching.
No, and like I said, I don't think he should either. You know,
he got nothing to prove to anybody. Nothing.
Let's see here. Saban is done. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think he is. I'm just saying if he were to come back, it would have to be like for the hometown West Virginia team, or it would just. I just don't see why he would come back. What does he have to gain from coming back? You know, another 3 or 4 years in a different landscape of college football with, you know, again, like I'm sure he'd be able to get whatever job he wanted if he decided to do it. But,
you know, sorry, Christian,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think, like Chris said, the ability to be an advisor, maybe to pop into practice, maybe, you know, a couple times a week, maybe still coach the defensive backs, maybe have some input with the coaches in the coaches meeting, you know, that is probably about what he wants, right? I don't think, you know, Saban really wants to be doing the grind every day of coaching and building a roster and doing all that shit.
I was going to add, you know, it's kind of interesting, a guy that I was wrong about this till I just Googled it and looked down the information, but you know, Mac Brown, when he left Texas, I was like, he's done. You know, he won the one national title for Texas and that great Vince Young team and all that was there forever. You know, and he came back, 7 years later to coach UNC and still coaching. But he's 72 right now. He's Saban's age. Like, he actually quit in Texas in 2013. So he'd been about 10 years younger. So, yeah, I was like, Mac Brown's always a guy I think about. I was like, God, he was off forever. You know, he was already, I thought, old at that time. And then, you know, he ended up coming back and obviously still at UNC. All right, children of the corn. I'm going to answer your question right here because I had to answer this question 3 times today at work about Nebraska. Like I said, we'll do our prediction videos later on. There's a lot of player movement. Christian agrees. Yeah, we're not giving any predictions as far as records go. But if I had to pick today, looking at the schedule, and this isn't my final prediction on their record, like I said, I'm saying 7. I know that is way below the number I keep hearing around the state of Nebraska per usual.
Say 8 or 9. I say 7. I say. Ooh. What do I say? You know, let's pull it up. Brutal, let's pull it up. We're getting pretty late in here, so we'll pull it up. I know the first 6 are supposed to be pretty somewhat easy, right?
Yeah, the Colorado game in there. We have Rutgers midseason. Then that stretch of like UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa, and I'm missing one really other good team there. Can't remember. It's 5 games in a row at the end of the year. Illinois, we play them this year as well. Oh, there it is. Ohio freaking State.
So UTEP.
New
The
coach.
home game against UTEP got a new coach. I think he was from Austin P, if I'm not mistaken. Austin P, and he's a young guy. This guy is pretty young. I was watching some stuff on this guy. He's brought a good chunk of that roster over from UTEP, so watch out for him. But I do think Rule's got enough pieces there that should be it's a dub. Colorado.
This one's huge.
Colorado is going to be improved this year, I think. Now, if you look at some things that they're recruiting, not very good. I think they've landed some transfer portal makes up for it. So it is early in the season. You still got Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter. You still got some pieces. Make it interesting. Then you play Northern Iowa. Should be a W. So I would say worst case, you're starting off 2-1. Then you get into Big Ten play there and Illinois. Like Illinois was a very disappointing team to me last year. You can make that same statement about every Big Ten West team last year too, by the way. But Illinois was very disappointing to me.
Teams.
So I don't know. Maybe they have a bounce back year this year. So we'll have to see. I'll have to see how that offseason goes. I really have to start breaking them down, kind of figure out some stuff there. Purdue's getting better. All right. Purdue is going to be better this year. Why do I say that? I know a lot of people are saying, well, they got 4 Georgia Bulldogs players, so I think they'll be better from that standpoint.
Coming back too. I think he actually was their one bright piece last year.
And I think Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, they got Luke Altmaier. He's a young buck.
They did. Yep, from Ole Miss.
He's a young buck out there. Then you get into the teeth of the schedule.
I like Rutgers this year, man. Sorry to interrupt you there, but a lot of people think Rutgers was a joke. They won they beat Miami in a bowl game. Not that says a ton, but I mean they had 8 or 9 wins this year, didn't they, Christian? They bring back Shiano's a good coach, man. He's slept on a lot.
So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. You might think this is crazy. I could see 5 wins out of the schedule, though.
I know. This is where here, I'll give you mine. I actually think Nebraska wins their first game at UTEP. I think they lose to Colorado. Why? You guys know I hate Colorado and Iowa more than any schools in the country, especially Colorado. There would be nothing more if we had 2 wins this year against Iowa and Colorado. I'd be happy. But I think we lose to Colorado. I think we beat Northern Iowa. I think we beat Illinois. I think we beat Purdue, but we lose to Rutgers. So I'm looking at 2 losses there. We beat Indiana. Then I'm worried about this 5-game stretch here. This is my problem. The Ohio State, we're not beating Ohio State. UCLA, you guys can laugh about UCLA all you want. They're not a bad team or a bad program. They've been a hell of a lot better than we've been the last 5 years. Chip Kelly, is he coming back, by the way, to UCLA?
He is. Chip Kelly's back.
Okay, so I thought. USC, you guys, I'm the first one on the internet to mock them and their defense, and Lincoln Riley, still a more talented team than the Huskers are. They just are right now, currently. This isn't my final, again, record, but I'm just going off the rip right here. Wisconsin's going to be much more improved. You guys know what I think about Fickle. Iowa, we have a hell of a time beating Iowa every year. There's another team that has to be better than what they were last year, especially offensively. I think that we win probably 7 games right now. But I could see a scenario. Christian brought it up. Nighthawk brought it up here. 5, 6 wins. I could see that too. I know people are throwing out the numbers 9 and 10. Seems like a ongoing thing every year with Nebraska when it comes to record predictions. And most Nebraska fans seem to think we're always going 9 wins or more. But I don't think the schedule is as easy as everybody's making it out to be.
Nighthawk, thank you, by the way, for the super chat, $1.99 there, 5 and 7. He says, I don't think it's as easy either, right? But again, I think this is what's going to make college football so fun to watch over the next couple of years, is because everybody is getting better. You look at, again, we look at just the SEC, because we don't just break down Nebraska, we don't just break down some of these teams. We got to look at all of college football. Ole Miss last year and LSU were hot garbage on defense. You look at what they've done this offseason, both those teams, it's primarily putting the focus on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's coaches, whether it's transfer portal, whatever have you. They are getting better. Every team in college football is trying to figure out a way to get better. And, again, it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening with this, right? You touched on it, Chris. Raiola very well is probably going to be the starter. If he's not, then something criminally, in my opinion, has gone wrong. Can you win games with Heinrich Haarberg? Sure. Is he, realistically, was there anything you saw last year that you haven't seen by flipping on Dylan Raiola's tape, going against Buford High School, 7A powerhouse high school, where most of those guys are going to the top programs in the country on that team? You know what I mean? That you weren't walking away and saying, I'm more impressed with Raiola and what he did as a senior in high school than I am with Haarberg and what he did as a sophomore at Nebraska last year, from the passing standpoint.
Right. No. I agree with that. My question lies on offensive line, pass blocking. I've had a problem with that forever at Nebraska. Wide receivers. Who? I mean, I like what's his bucket? Fast
Coleman.
Yeah,
Coleman.
I like him a lot. But I'd like to see a veteran wide receiver. I know we landed the one kid from Wake Forest. I can't think of his name. That'll help out a little bit. But there's got to be more pieces than just Dylan Raiola. I'm so sick, and I'm not saying the people in the chat. I'm saying some of these people I meet downtown and talk to every day at work keep trying to tell me that it's almost like they're banking on Raiola be the savior. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, he might be. But last time I checked, successful football teams have more than just a good quarterback, right? We've seen Stetson Bennett win titles at Georgia, and he wasn't even probably the top 20 player on that team, but he did his job. But they had a lot of other pieces around him. My point is we're going to have to get better in a lot of areas. Christian, I think you agree. The defense is going to have to be as good, if not better. Again, people keep forgetting the addition of Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC this year. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to score some points. And you said it to start the show off. There are going to be ups and downs. Dylan Raiola is not going to walk in here and throw for 400 yards a game and 5 touchdowns every single week. That is not going to happen. If you think that, then you need to really start watching college football, especially as a true freshman. It's hard to do. I'll be surprised if he comes in here and throws more touchdowns and interceptions this year. Honestly, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. Nebraska isn't a plug-and-play school like a Clemson is or an Alabama is at quarterback most years.
Yeah. By the way, you did get the Texas kid, which is good because yeah, you got that Texas kid, and he had a whopping 1 catch for 14 yards last year.
Yeah, I know.
Now, 2 years prior to that, he had 44 catches, 878 yards, 12 touchdowns, and even had 12 carries, 23 yards. I mean, the kid's got talent, right? But that's the thing. You need production. And so you hope he doesn't lose it. You hope he doesn't have rust because it's been a couple years since he's actually produced at that level. You're going to want to see that, right? You got Dowdle. Now, again, Dowdle, I think, he looks good, but you need that provenness to it, right? Yep. When I think of Raiola, I think of this guy.
Yep.
Dante Moore. He was a blue chip quarterback himself, 5-star guy, true freshman quarterback, goes to a team in UCLA that had Dorian Thompson-Robinson the year prior. He pretty much, he ended up winning the job the first game. They kind of alternated out, But, I mean, look at the kid. And UCLA's defense was actually pretty damn good, awesome. This year. I was really impressed with it. I think their coordinator ended up going to USC.
He did. Well, they need all the help they can get on that side of the ball, Christian. And to add to this, and when I said I'll be surprised if Raiola throws more touchdowns and interceptions, I know people are going to laugh at me here, but just watch. Look at what Moore did. 11 TDs to 9 picks. I mean, these are not mind-blowing numbers. This kid was a true freshman. We watched him play a couple times, Christian. He is a stud. I mean, he could throw it. He throws a good ball. Problem is, though, he's young. There is a big difference between high school football and Power 5 top-tier football and college football. There's a huge difference, and it's going to be tough for Raiola. And in Nebraska, like I just said earlier, guys, and I'll kick it back to Christian here, Nebraska's not a plug and play school. This isn't Clemson when they had Deshaun Watson, elite receivers, and he's out the window of the NFL, plug in Trevor Lawrence. That's not, Nebraska doesn't have those weapons, pieces, a running game like that. They don't.
Well, and also I will say this too, one of the biggest question marks in as far as the passing game, in my opinion, was the offensive line at times, right? 100%. Their ability to sustain blocks. And I think a lot of that really does start up front with the coach who, what's the offensive line coach for Nebraska's name again, Chris?
Raiola.
Okay, yeah. So I wonder if that kind of played into why he ended up coming here. And not the fact that he's probably not the best offensive line coach, for the university, right? It's kind of like every year you look, the best quarterback doesn't win the Super Bowl in the NFL. That's why Brock Purdy has a damn good shot at going to a Super Bowl right now, and he ain't nowhere near the best quarterback in the NFL. I really think when I look at this is what I think of. This kid flashed, you know what I mean? And he was a top quarterback. I think arguably he would have been much higher if it wasn't for the whole Arch Manning bullshit that we had to sit through last year. You know what I mean? As a prospect, right? Really, I think this kid was better than Manning for obvious reasons, but I digress. I stood on that hill and I'll stand on it until I die. My whole point of it is, when he played defenses, when he played schools that actually had tough defenses, the Oregon States, the Utahs of the world, he struggled immensely, turned the ball over, and it was tough. And I think that, I think similarly you'll see that with Raiola, right? You touched on it, right? Coming into a place like Alabama or Georgia or Clemson and being Trevor Lawrence, being Tua Tagovailoa, being, well, I don't really know who Georgia's freshman quarterback is. USC. I can only tell you. Yeah, USC, that Miller Moss kid or whatever his name was that lit it up. They had talent. I mean, they have, so much talent. And it's hard to replicate that. I know there's some pieces. I know there's some things to be excited about. But you also have to understand the Big Ten West last year, I think the defenses were overly inflated because of how bad the offenses were. I mean, almost more than half of the Big Ten West last year's offenses finished, in the they were over, 120th in the country as far as, total offense last year. And their defenses got propped up because of that. So they all looked really good. Like Iowa looked really good. And you go back to what Iowa did in that bowl game against Tennessee. Tennessee, half their defense was in the portal at that point and wasn't playing. They were starting a true freshman kid, and at quarterback, and ended up losing by multiple touchdowns. They really did not do much in that game. I mean, it looked like
was the final score of that game. And Amalivius, as like I like to call him, he looked amazing. I actually thought Tennessee was crazy for starting him his first ever start against a good Iowa strong, tough defense. You know what I mean? And he played really well. He looked really good. By the way, he's a top 6 Heisman favorite odds over in Vegas right now. They think he's going to have a huge year. I mean, that kid looked really good too.
Yeah, just looking back at this, could Raiola be Adrian Martinez's freshman year? I think he can be better, if you want me to be honest. I think he has better arm talent than Adrian Martinez did. I don't know if he's necessarily as elite of a runner.
No, he's not the runner. Definitely got a better arm. Christian's got a better arm than Martinez did. To answer this question, I actually think no in a way, because Adrian Martinez, what was the expectations for him? Nobody knew about him. What's the expectations for Raiola? They're through the roof. Nebraska's going to be all over the TV next year, regardless of what they do, because of Raiola. You guys saw how much coverage we've gotten the last couple months since he's committed here or whatever. That's where I'm at. It's like everybody expects him to be so good. It didn't help his case that he pulled out from about 40 different high schools he played in, and then he was going to go to Ohio State. Then he's committed to Georgia, and then he moves down there. Now he's in Nebraska. He's put a big target on his back, in my opinion, and it's going to be a lot. And I hope I'm not saying that he can't handle it. I'm not saying that he might be great. It's going to be a lot. Christian said something very important here a couple minutes ago. You need help around him, to insulate him a little bit. And I just truly think in my heart this year, it's going to be a tough year. I hope he gets better. My goal for Raiola this year is from the first game of the season to the next game and so on, do you get better? That's what I want to see. By the end of the year, you're not that's another thing too I talk about in college football. You play 10, 9, 8, 7 games in a row, you're not a newbie anymore. You know what I mean? You got games under your belt. I want to see him like truly turn the corner. And if he does that, I think that's where Matt Rule, this whole system, the recruiting, the transfer portal going forward for Nebraska after this year is going to be huge. If he plays well, we look good. Let's say we win eight games, Christian, which would be, I think, a success for most Nebraska fans here next year, would be happy with that. I think that's huge for the program and the state of Nebraska going forward. Because if we have another year where we win 4 or 5 games, I think things start getting ugly and quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think there's really two things you do. And if you do two of these things, both of these things, it'll be a success. Number one, Raiola needs to start every single game that kid's healthy, right? Number two, you got to win at least 6 games this year.
I agree.
I understand, and even if you don't, they're going to say, well, you started a true freshman quarterback. Well, you also kept your defensive coordinator from last year. You got most of that defense back. You feel as if you're adding certain pieces to be good enough. You got to win at least 6 games this year, show some sign of improvements. Because if you don't start the kid and you decide to start him maybe halfway through the season, he's going to get restless. If you start him early on and you get into Big Ten play and he really struggles, then what? You know what I mean? So it's you got to start him right off the bat and you got to stick with him. So I think that's really where I'm at with it.
Yep. No, I agree.
Likes it. This is now next question.
You get one more, Mike.
One more. My God.
We're 2 hours live today.
2-hour mark here. Being Raiola is a true freshman, do we stay vanilla for the spring game or do we throw him out there and go full throttle? I think they're going to probably play it vanilla. I mean, to be honest, with you, I think they're going to keep it vanilla. They're just going to install simple concepts, let him play for a little bit. They're probably going to, he'll probably win the job pretty early on, I would think, because, the kid's arm talent is freaking, it's really good. And then they're going to get him out of there, and then they'll start installing a lot of harder concepts and get on to some of the game plans, for UTEP and all that stuff. That's my thoughts on it.
I agree with that. I don't think they're going to show a ton with him. Why would you? You're going to get to see him in practice, or the coaches do every single day, and what he can and can't do. Definitely doesn't have a problem throwing the ball. I know that. I've heard about this kid since he was like in junior high. So, yeah, he's uber talented. But you're right, Christian. Yeah, be prepared. They better be preparing for UTEP right now.
I'm giving Billy Napier credit for bringing in 2 5-stars who were top 5 players in 2024. DJ Lagway, LJ McCray. Yeah, I also, I want to give Napier another shout out here. He landed somebody. Let me go back to this kid's name real quick. I want to make sure I say this the right way. I think it's Grimsley, if I'm not mistaken.
Hats off to Billy Napier.
Hold on one second. I want to make sure I say this kid's name right. Jameer Grimsley. That's what I knew it was that. He committed to Bama, right? And was on campus early. Kid was an athlete. He's a cornerback, wide receiver, pretty damn explosive, as it were. And he was a 4-star prospect, if I'm not mistaken. And Florida was able to steal him away from Bama pretty much, after he jumped in the portal. So hats off to him. Hats off to Florida. There was some times where I thought this year, this offseason, Florida was going to implode. It looked like they were losing ground on the recruiting trail. And, they were actually able to kind of pull it off. I know on signing day, there was a lot of rumors that Lagway could get flipped, to like A&M or like Ole Miss or something like that. It was, if I remember right. So, Napier can recruit. We know that ain't the issue. It's going to be, this is a make or break year for him, and he's going to have a lot of young guys that got to contribute right away. And we know how that kind of rolls sometimes. So, Swag, it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we'll know what's going to happen halfway through the year. You're either going to be calling to fire the guy, or you're going to be trying to get a statue built outside of Ben Griffith Hill Stadium.
Build a statue, tear it down the next week. Gators. I gotta give Gators shit, man.
You don't know Gator.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit. Well, guys, we've approached over the 2-hour mark here. We're gonna go ahead and probably hop off. We'll be back on next Wednesday. I think probably for most of the month of February, we'll just be on Wednesday nights, do something consistent, and then for at least for the next couple weeks, right? We're gonna kind of do this, and then we'll probably take a little bit of a break and kind of get ready to go into the spring and start getting ready for that. So we will catch you guys next Wednesday. As always, we're the I-80 boys, located right here in the heart of America.